Welcome to the Lead and Learn Lounge, the podcast for paediatric allied health professionals who want to lead with heart, purpose, and a little bit of play. We're your hosts. I'm Lauren Haskins.
And I'm Marion Giddy.
This podcast is your invitation to pull up a chair, slow things down, and join us for real conversations about what it really means to lead in paediatric practice today. We're not here to hand out expert advice or perfectly packaged solutions. Instead, we'll be sharing honest reflections, asking thoughtful questions, and exploring the things that matter. From building inclusive teams and rethinking workplace design to understanding your own leadership style.
Including if you're someone who's wired a little differently. Whether you're leading a team, leading a project, or simply leading yourself through the next stage of your career, there's something here for you.
So get comfy and let's lead and learn together.
Welcome back to another episode of the Lead and Learn Lounge. This is where we talk about leading paediatric allied health teams, and Marion and myself are both in the clinic today. So nothing like the rhythm of leading paediatric teams and paediatric allied health services than from the clinic. Hi, Marion.
Hi, Lauren. I was just laughing because I heard the vacuum in the background. I went, yeah, well, that's apt. It's just perfect timing.
Perfect timing. So I think everyone's getting a real look today at, what a normal day looks like for us in the episodes. We have been, in our various offices and, haven't necessarily exposed the backdrop of where we are, but we're in the thick of it today. So
as always.
as always. So one of the things that we want to talk about on this podcast is what it's like to be leading teams within that paediatric allied health space. And one of the things that we wanted to talk about today was leading in challenging times, because I think that that's what we're facing in paediatric allied health at the moment. It's something that's really topical. And so, we wanted to talk through that, about that. It's a really interesting landscape. You and I have both been around for a little while now, and in that space, we're quite seasoned. You might say that's the kind way of saying it rather than being around. I think we're finding that across the board and in our sector that it is a really challenging time to be working in the paediatric allied health space, regardless of the setting that you're in, whether it's public, private, not-for-profit. I think we're seeing a lot of strain in that leadership space. Keen to hear why you think it is impacting that leadership space so much. I think leading in challenging times. Why is this so topical? Why do you think we need to be chatting about this more?
Well, I think what comes to mind for me straight up in terms of why is this topic coming up? It's because our industry is evolving, right? It's in a big metamorphosis stage. These changes in funding and changing in models and approaches. It adds, it's a layer of complexity, I think. And I guess I was just writing a few things down before my pregnancy brain loses them. But I really prefer the word or the understanding around complexity rather than challenge. You know what I mean? And I think that there are a number of systemic factors and also challenges individually for clinicians as well. It's not just systemic. I think individual clinicians and business owners are also experiencing their own personal challenges that adds to this complexity that we're experiencing at the moment. When I graduated, you're going to these conversations, I feel so old, but, when I graduated 15 years ago, it was really a very simple industry to be a part of, in terms of funding models and clients and what the pediatric space looked like. And it's just evolved so much. So I think that's where the frame of challenge comes in. And I did want to call it a frame because I think you can, in more of the coaching space, you can make whatever meaning you want of the complexity. And I think that's a really key piece of the times themselves are just the times that they are. Our industry is experiencing change and evolution, and a lot of that is wildly outside of leaders' control. They're not
Interesting.
areas that we might be able to influence in certain ways with advocacy and whatnot, but we can't necessarily control a lot of the changes and constraints that are coming our way around how we need to report things or how we can design our services or price caps or things like this. They're not decisions that we are making. These are government decisions. And so then it's given that, how do we navigate that?
Well, can I touch on the point that you were saying before at the very beginning about, that idea of it being around evolving and the profession evolving, but we're also, I think, in this leadership space, particularly in allied health, we start off as practitioners, and this idea of leading teams through change, it is an evolution of our own skills and our own abilities in that space as well.
Yeah.
And so this idea of it being complex and having those elements of complexity with things that are within our control and out of our control, it's also things, it adds that layer of complexity to what we're able to do and how we're able to respond in the face of that
course. Absolutely.
complex environment. And I think that's why I feel the word challenge, because I feel that's, in our sector, like that's what we're kind of feeling across the board, when we're having conversations, when we're looking at what's in the media and on what's online, that's the word that comes up. But I don't disagree with you that it's because it's that framework. It's because there are so many moving parts and there is that complexity.
And I think that, you'll hear me reference through the integral model all the time. I think, in the industry we're part of, that's where the complexity comes from. The challenge that we might feel about it, I think, can be the mismatch between our own sense as leaders or clinicians of our capabilities in order to execute skills that are needed to navigate that complexity, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's like the individual level, to what degree are we skilled enough and have enough knowledge base to be flexible or innovative or make the changes or communicate the changes or advocate in a way that's or whatever particular skill set we think the context requires. How well can we do that? How easy it is to prioritize that in the busyness of our daily schedule and that kind of a thing. So I think it's that intersection of the individual person, the meaning that they make of the situation, the skills that they have, and then how that matches everything that's happening in the industry at the moment. And then that's where I think the frame that can come up for a lot of people, or the belief that can come up, is like, wow, this is a really big challenge. And that's true for me as well. So I want to, acknowledge that one of the things that I've been working on with my own coach is the adversity frame. This kind of meta belief that, things are hard. I've got to rise to the challenge, and that's a belief, right? At its core, that's what it is. Things themselves are not necessarily subjectively hard or easy, or objectively, sorry. They are experienced by us as hard or easy, as challenging or exciting, as I think of some of the other ways, but
some of the other,
the brain goes straight to, this is challenge, this is hard. And it's like, well, but do we automatically link that meaning with it being bad? Can it be opportunity? Can it be, joyfully frustrating in a way that allows us to bring about change if we'll let it? So I think there's the mindset piece in it as well, around how we make meaning of the changes that are happening in our industry and how that positions us as leaders to be able to feel capable to respond or not.
There are so many things, and this may even be for future podcasts, that I'm thinking about some of these things that stick with me. I think that the change management piece is probably something that we, can talk to in terms of the landscape that we're in, the complexity of, lots of moving parts across the sector, and also how we as leaders are growing and developing our own skills and our team skills within that space, but how that change management looks. But I also was thinking about how we communicate and how we show up for our teams in those moments of challenge as well. So like what you were talking about in terms of that mindset and how we approach and perceive and also communicate that challenge with our teams. I think that also speaks volumes to that leadership piece. The example that I use is that we try to use the word, and we have very specific ways of, adjusting our language. And so we've got within our team, we've got a document that talks about our language and what's the language that we use, because it's such a cultural shift as well.
Yeah.
And so we don't use the word change. We use the word update. And, just that we have an update.
Look, and I think language informs our meaning making, doesn't it?
It
is
so
important to choose. And to choose intentionally how we're choosing to frame things. And that's true with teams. It's true also in our own internal narrative. And that's what I mean around, if we think about things through an adversity frame and think this is a challenging situation, I'm going through a hard time, this is difficult for me, well, then that's going to position us with a certain, I'm on the back foot, I'm the underdog, I've got to fight for this. Like, that's what comes up for me. And it's like, well, okay, maybe that's really resourceful. Maybe that's the energy that I need to bring to this decision making. But I think for me, and this is a personal thing, I find sustaining that energy for a long time draining, right? That's where things can feel heavy and dragging. And my intention at the moment for how I'm leading at Cooey and the way that I'm tackling things is to do it with more lightness, more joy. It's the ride, right? Change is inevitable. It's happening all the time. It's actually a little bit of a fallacy. Things are never not changing. Our thoughts, our mindset, our own physical bodies, the industry that we're in, nothing is static. It's always in process. It's just where, and so it's, I think, you're speaking to that language being so important. And it's important for us as leaders in managing our state so that we can respond, so that we can look after ourselves in leading, because there are pressures in leading. And then also so that we can cultivate the culture in our team to support our team to be able to also navigate the updates.
The updates. The updates. I think, I appreciate you sharing about, showing up with that lightness and, with joy. For me, I'm really trying to show up intentionally. So, to have intention and presence in terms of, it may not always be a physical presence, but to be present in those interactions with my team and to have, intention and purpose with what I'm doing. I think you're right. I think it does take energy, and it does, so it's just about a matter of where you want to direct that energy and how you're going to direct that energy, right?
That's right. Yeah. There's a presupposition or a saying, like a frame in NLP, that energy flows where attention goes as guided by your intention. So that having an intention for how you want to be in your role is part one. And if you can make that intention consciously, like, as I said, for me at the moment, that's around bringing joy and lightness into the work that I do every day. What a privilege it is to be here, like how meaningful the work that we do, how grateful I am to be able to be navigating this complexity at the moment for as long as I can, right? What a privilege it is to do that. It's Speech Pathology Week at the moment. It probably won't be when you're listening to this, but what a wonderful profession. What an impactful profession. And keeping that front of mind allows me to focus my attention okay, well, what do I need to be doing right now? And then that directs the energy in where I want it to go, and if we can set an intention consciously around how we'd like to show up or what we're trying to do at the moment, then that can help unsurface the unconscious intentions that sit below the surface, which might be things like the adversity frames that come up, for us. But yeah, I think intention's really important.
So for people that are listening, do you have something that's practical, tangible, that they can hold on to, you've touched on and what you've described is really important? What's something that someone can very quickly, because this work is not short-term, quick work, but is there something that, people listening may be able to do, is if they are feeling challenged, if they are feeling that, things are tough right now. It's not to discredit and say that it's not, but what's something practical that you're able to share? And I'll also ponder that too in terms of, is there something that someone might be able to do, whether it's an exercise or whether it's a mindset or, that someone might be able to do if they're feeling challenged leading teams at the moment?
Look, my go-to recommendation is always to get a little bit more objectivity than you currently have, right? So when we're feeling something subjectively in our body, or feeling the weight of this challenge or feeling the pressure of this situation, it can be really hard to navigate the situation from that place of feeling, So if we can, through journaling, through a coaching conversation, through even just chatting with a friend or a mentor, or engaging in like a little reflective practice tool, just giving yourself some space in the diary to zoom out, process what's happening, and be able to look at it rather than experience it. So if it's challenge that you're feeling, write that challenge down. Oh, I'm thinking this and I'm feeling this and I'm trying to do all of these things and this is what it means for me right now. So then you've got it down on paper in front of you in black and white and you can look at it. Instantly, you've got more objectivity than you had at the start, just in being able to see it. And as you look at your thinkings and your feelings and your internal workings, you've got a different perspective straight away than when you were just feeling it. So that for me is step one, a little bit more objectivity, give yourself a bit more space, zoom out in the diary, even if it's half an hour, and then do that weekly and allow that space to give you, the chance to choose more with more agency and autonomy. Well, given that, what do I want to do? Versus just getting stuck in that hamster wheel and just feeling it and trying and feeling it and trying. You know what I mean?
Yeah. You articulated it a lot more articulately than what I will. But very similar lines for me. I wanted to share about just clearing the noise in your head in particular. There's so much that goes on as a leader in our own mind. We're carrying with us not only what's happening for us personally, professionally, and all of the things that we are considering, but we're also carrying that for our teams as well. Mm-hmm. So I think, and then adding, family dynamics and all of those kind of things into it, there's a lot that we're carrying in our brains. And I feel like to help clear that noise, to be getting it down on paper. So I find it really helpful to have 3 key things that you're wanting to achieve in the day, and to start the day with writing those, documenting those down. I know that you've said, I'm just writing down a few notes. Have a space to be able to get things out of your mind onto paper. And then at the end of the day, do that reflection about, acknowledging what you've achieved throughout the day. Are there any things that you want to prepare for tomorrow? Just to get it out of your mind, because I think that clarity and that reduction of noise can be really helpful because of the level of complexity and also the pace at which we're operating as leaders. I think that that's something that is sometimes minimized to some extent about how quickly we're having to keep up to date with all of the changes and all of the things that are occurring. So I think reducing that noise, getting it objectively, as you said, on paper can be really helpful. So that would be my advice, is just where possible, reduce the internal noise that's occurring for you to be able to get it out. For me, I'm a verbal processor. I do like to write down notes, but I'm finding AI particularly helpful in terms of being able to verbalize, and so I use a lot of voice notes rather than writing things down. But that would be my suggestion.
I just love that, and I think it's the combination of both of what we're sharing there. You know, the rhythms in your day, the rhythms in your week, where you get that zoom out capacity, that time to strategize and time to process, whether that's in an auditory format. Like for me, it's Google Tasks and my calendar. That's how I do that. I'm much more like list focused, auditory digital in my style. Finding a method that works for you is so important. And an add-on to that has been a game changer for me lately is finding times for processing in my diary. And this was, again, a suggestion from my coach. If someone doesn't have a coach, having a coach is a fantastic thing for a developmental process. But, the suggestion, the challenge that I was having, I was like, waking up, thinking about things in the middle of the night, and I've got then methods for catching it down and writing it down so I can go back to sleep, etc. But I was like, I just don't want to wake up in the middle of the night. And the suggestion back from my coach was like, well, where's the time in your diary to think about things? Not do things, just think. Just actually digest and process and figure out what your questions are and figure out what your next steps might be, and just actually unscheduled, unagended time. And so I built it into my diary, and it's fantastic.
You're sleeping better.
I am, because I'm not having this internal noise that pops up at 3 a.m. because finally the brain's quiet, and so it goes, here, I've saved this for you. I've got time in my diary to do those thinkings, and that's been huge.
Yeah, love that. So one of the things that, and as we wrap up this particular episode, we're really passionate about supporting leaders in this paediatric allied health space. So we have got a range of different resources that we'll continue to share, hopefully some really practical tips and ideas like we've and to encourage anyone listening that if we can support you in this space, in this leadership space, separate to coaching, we want to be able to provide some really practical, tangible supports as people who are living, breathing, leading and supporting our own paediatric allied health teams. Really keen to work with you and support you in that space. And hopefully you've been able to get something from even listening to this podcast today. So thanks for joining me on this discussion, Marion, and look forward to chatting to you in our next episode.
See you soon.